Hello, friends, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you logging on as my stats are going down all the time. And, it's because I'm on a shadow ban. My first podcast, which is on the truth of the world, has been stuck on 21,000 for about 5 years now. Now, in many texts, you've got references to the Lost Book of Secrets, the Great Book of Secrets, the Great Book of Lost Secrets, and, permutations, but essentially all talking about the same book, which is a book that tells you the who, what, why, when, where, and how of your existence, our existence, if you like. And for all they're looking, no one seems to have managed to have found it. Now, if ever such a book existed, then why destroy its enigma by making it available the world over? So even if it was found, how would we know? Now, sometimes fate lends a hand, and I think that's exactly what's happened with the rediscovery of the erroneously called book on the origin of the world within the NHL Nag Hammadi library, together with its sister book, Hypostasis of the Archons, Reality of the Rulers. Now, both books, need to be retitled, I think. Book on the Origin of the World clearly is the Great Book of Secrets. The major arcana suit of the tarot is the Great Book of Secrets. Antoine de Gebelin was quite right in saying that the major arcana suit of the tarot deck has its origins in Egypt and tells of the creation of the world. Spot on, he is. Now, the Great Book of Secrets, I think, is the erroneously called book on the origin of the world. So it should be called the Book of Great Secrets. Okay, now, Reality of the Rulers, or Hypostasis of the Archons, needs to be renamed. And I'm going to go with the Truth of the Archons. Because hypostasis is slightly a weasel word, means deep stasis. The word hypostasis doesn't occur in the Nag Hammadi library. So these were merely titles that were given to the text by the scholars who translated them. Now, before we go any further, of course, I must remind you, if you don't know, that according to these books, Nag Hammadi library, it makes it abundantly clear that the God of the Old Testament is not and never was the true creator. He's merely a lower order entity, insane, with no spirit in him. But we'll get into that. So basically what it tells you is that in the beginning, there is a thing called Big God, proper God. The God of the entirety, the entire creator, who is neither male or female, androgyne. Now, it may help to think of him as favouring the male for the sake of his fatherhood. So he, albeit as an androgyne, created a kind of womb, into which to grow all manner of gods, deities, energies and forces. And all these things, like him, were composed of pure, boundless spirit. And into this womb-like space, he breathed the principal breath of life. And those things in there, the gods, deities, spirits, and the energies and forces, grew in response to that principal breath. And after a time, they burst free and flourished in the chasm that he had created, called chaos. But chaos shouldn't be confused with disorder. Rather, it's simply the name given to the chasm, given to it because it existed in space and time before all else except that which created it. It's basically this chasm, and into it these things flourished. And so the planes of the spirit were formed as a reflection, it tells you, and a replication of the power of God. Now, amongst all these myriad creations that came from this principal kind of womb and creations were two of a class called aeons. One was called Christos and the other Sophia, favouring male and female respectively. And like the God of the entirety, they too were capable of creation, replication, and reflecting the heavens. So within the order of things, they could either act together or alone, basically as a single helix or a double helix. Sophia, it tells us, went to the god of the entirety, and it's quite specific about that. So take no notice of alternative mythologists and Nag Hammadi analysts. And she told him that she wanted to act alone and create her own womb into which to grow the spirit fetuses of all manner of gods and deities. And he agreed, because it was all in accordance and within the pattern, if you like. And like her father before her, God of the entirety, she achieved this. Now, here's the problem, right? Two things emerged from the embryonic waters of her womb, like anomalous residues. These were the substances of ether and the substance of matter, both of which formed their own planes beneath those of the spirit. Everything came to be in order and balanced, save for a disturbance that she detected in that void. So Sophia, within an area of the chasm, creates her own womb, out of which all these gods, spirits, deities flourish. She's capable of creating these wonderful lives. She created us. However, out of those waters emerged an anomaly, for want of a better way of putting it. And it was a dark presence that moved effortlessly across the face of her waters, creating waves, and not made of spirit, but rather shadow and matter. Shadow is another word, of course, for soul. So she detects this intelligence, this form, in these two substances of ether and matter, and she calls to him in the dark, Yaltabaoth, my child of chaos, whom I have birthed, come to me. And he was drawn to her by her superior power, attracted to her presence in the void. And she decided, by way of her wisdom and forethought, to make him a fashioner and maintainer of the planes of ether and matter. And by doing so, she accomplished an equilibrium therein. And satisfied by that action, she withdrew back up to her home, which is in the ninth heaven, called the Ennead. But let's not concern ourselves with the eighth and seventh heavens and the sixth heavens and so forth. Now, he lacked a memory. Now, he lacked knowledge of whom it was that had birthed him, or from where he had come. Alone in the darkness of his realm, he grew from a newborn with no knowledge of the origin of his power, because he was also a blind and foolish God. Now let me stop there, right? All what I'm saying to you, I'm not reading the Nag Hammadi. I'm just telling you what it says. I'm summarizing, okay? So bear that in mind. These aren't the actual words in there, although they are, but they're not, but they are. Acting within his nature and unaware of Sophia's stamp within him and the proxy power that worked through him, he set about fashioning the universe so that it would be his dwelling place. With his power, he created 7 children who were like himself, made of shadow and ether. Then for each of them he built a heavenly sphere, and for his footstool he made the plane of the earth. So there we have some kind of dark solar system. Now these were the 7 great archons, and he himself was their chief. So basically you've got like a dark solar system formed. Then for each of them he built a heavenly sphere. So we've established that. So these 7 were the great archons, and he himself their chief. And they replicated in number, myriad and beyond count, it tells us. Having completed all this, he declared himself the one and only God, saying, "If anything else exists besides me, then show yourself now." So he's created innumerable, we think maybe million, billion, trillions, we don't know, of archons that dwell on the earth, that dwell within the spheres of the solar system. And to be clear, the solar system is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, of which the moon and the sun are 7, but the sun hasn't come into existence yet. Okay, so it's just the earth as his footstool, and it's 7 heavenly spheres. A system of darkness is what it is. It's not been ignited or ablaze or anything. But when he declares himself the one and only God to all his archons, don't forget he has amnesia. He's a force, and he's also an energy. You shouldn't try and define him in human terms. So, and it tells you that he is lacking in a memory. So he's forgotten his origins. Now, when he declares this, his voice was heard on high in the 9th heaven by Sophia, which is where she dwells with the higher ones, and her male equivalent, which is the Christos Aeon. Like a bastard child, he, lacking a parent, his arrogance and error could not go uncorrected. So in her wisdom, for want of a better way of putting it, wisdom actually means something different in the text. Wisdom means to create like a kind of wizardry, to make and manufacture. So with her wisdom, forethought and knowledge, she formulated her divine mission plan to bring about their end in that form. She decided to destroy his world of darkness by bringing it into one with the light, it says at that point. She descended into the dark realm of shadow and matter, whereupon his son, he of the name Sabaoth, perceived her sacred powers, for it was at him that they were exclusively aimed. She chosen Sabaoth, and likewise he responded. And in that exchange she made him aware of her plan to rise him up to be higher than his father, and also to be a bringer of light and king of the sky, thereby fulfilling the first part of her transformation of the solar system into a system of light. And because of that, she told him he would be her instrument to help him bring about the creation of an immortal man of light in the form of a human being to the earth. So you see, it's revealing its secrets, the great book of secrets. She stretched out her finger and poured upon him a quantity of her creation light from her light as a challenge to the darkness of his father. And it describes this light as being like when you have a candle and you light other candles. It can light many other candles, and that light can go to myriad candles. The light of the original is not diminished by spreading that light. He becomes invested with immense power, acting in opposition to each of the cosmic forces of chaos greater than those of his father Yaldabaoth. And from that day to this, he is known as the Lord of Forces, becoming the son of the solar system, Lucifer, bringer of light. There are so many confusions about Lucifer. I'm not going to get into that here. But the Nag Hammadi, I think, really nails the Lucifer enigma. So she came down basically and set alight one of his sons, the one called Sabaoth, thereby giving light to all in the 7th heaven. The 7th heaven is the Hebdomad, or the solar system, comprised of Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Mars and Jupiter. The Earth is the footstool, and the sun and the moon make the 7. So never forget that. And everything in the Nag Hammadi is as seen from the surface of the earth with the naked eye. So the Ogdoad that we call the galaxy or the cosmos is the firmament or the realm of the fixed stars or the dome of the stars that move independently of the firmament or the dome. So his heavenly spheres were lit with light from it, and the earth, more importantly, was transformed into a plane capable of hosting organic life. The environment of the plane became toxic to them. It doesn't say that, this is just what I'm telling you from my understanding of it. And they were banished to live beneath it, that is, within the earth and within the spheres of the converted solar system. And the stars were made in the dome of the sky to shine upon the earth and move in sequence so as to mark units of time, such as years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds, and to be divided into seasons and night and day. And a new order and system were established in the seventh heaven, called the Heptamad, became the solar system, and Sabaoth became its bright shining sun and king of the heavenly sky. The sixth heaven became the moon for balance, and the dome became the Ogdoad, or eighth heaven, where she placed stars to shine in the night, and all these celestial things were divided into mansions and thrones and moving chariots. Having accomplished these many things, the archons then turned to Yaldabaoth and said, "You lied. You said you were the one and only God. You said you were the one and only power." And from that moment, the archons and their chief, Yaldabaoth, sometimes called Yaldabaoth, knew there was a greater power in the universe and a pre-existing God. Because of her demonstration, they were filled with great fear and wonder at the nature of this power. And the texts tell you, and envy entered the universe. Now, envy in the Nag Hammadi is something where they want to grab something, but it's exclusively for them, right? But no one else can have it. It's toxic. Envy is, it's not a covetous thing. It's a thing of destruction. And that envy took on another form, because in that transformation, she revealed to them the full matrix of the human being, knowing for certain, not that they would try, but that they would replicate it. Because don't forget, the archons are fashioners and maintainers of the physical realm and the etheric realm. They are replicators. They can make anything out of anything. They are masters of space and time. They control the 360 and 365 of every human soul. That's every day of the year, and that's up, down, left, right, sideways, and straight ahead. And in this way, she deceived them into manufacturing the body and the soul of the human being so she could incarnate her little innocent spirit, that's you and I, in order to destroy them from within like a sweet poisonous nectar injected into a hive to destroy it from within by way of its irresistibility. And because these archons are exceedingly dark and not things of beauty, the beauty of the human being therefore shone all the brighter before them. And the anthropos figure cast a spell over them, that's the human being, cast a spell over them that they would never be able to break for the sake of its superiority, beauty, power, and divinity. So that's you and I. So you see, when you're told that you're nothing, hurtling through space and time as a speck of dust on an insignificant planet in an insignificant solar system in an insignificant galaxy on the edge of somewhere on the edge of the etheric of nothing, of whatever, that is the archons at work in accessing this world, impinging upon the human being, making us think that we are not these things. That is where, and this is absolutely crucial to identify, That is the beginning of the destruction of the archons. Way back then, long before, in fact, at the point of our creation is the true destruction of the archons. So they conspired together to replicate this form on the earth as a creature of the earth, and to whom they gave the name Adam of adamantine. They set about making his form, and when they had finished, he lay dormant, breathless, and without life. So thinking they had failed, they abandoned him on the ground, saying, "We have done all we can do. We have replicated the form we saw in the vision, and yet cannot animate him." But Sophia, watching from on high, waited for them to leave before sending down to him her female serpent energy stream called Eve, meaning life. She entered in through his root chakra and acted as the principal breath, giving him life by breathing a soul into him to animate his physical body. And he awakened as one now possessed of a soul, but still lacking an incarnating spirit. Listen, friends, I hope you like that. And that's a kind of where we're going with the book. I will be doing a line-by-line translation as well as a short story form within the book. But essentially, we need to understand the message of these texts more so now than ever in this toxic, filthy, COVID-riddled world where the New Order has broken cover, inspired by the archons, the destruction of the human being. Friends, these texts are explosive. And what they contain is only the beginning, because these people way back then knew way ahead and knew far in advance the forethought of Sophia's plan. And people say, well, how come they knew these things, this pre-existence in this extremely plausible narrative? How come they knew? And the question the Nag Hammadi library puts to you each and every time is, how come you don't know? This is gnosis, friends. It's not bookish learning. You don't get it from a seminar group. You don't get it from a priest or some kind of intercessor, right? You find these things for yourself, and that's what it's all about. Wake up, for God's sake, for Sophia's sake. We must wake up. And although their armies are bigger than us, although we've been defeated by technology, they cannot destroy the spirit within you. And that's the important thing. The darker it gets, the brighter your spirit light shines for the sake of that darkness. The spirit only put the light in with the dark. Otherwise, it's not going to stand out. Read the dialogue of the Saviour, erroneously titled, but Jesus says the same thing. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, friends, and there'll be more. I need to get more of this message out. So listen, friends, right, until next time, I want to thank you very, very much. Until next time, friends, God bless you.